Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you. I am calling the meeting to order. We have a full agenda tonight. I'm going to start with roll call. Director Zavala Ortega. Here. Director Decker. Here. Director Barrows. Here. And Director Smith. Here. Thank you. All who are complying with the mask policy, we appreciate it very much. We do have students present. Our first item on the agenda is the audience participation portion. We received no written comments and we have no Zoom participants, but we do have a handful of speakers here. One note, we have several people who are attending in the overflow. We're at capacity. So if your name is called and you are in Roosevelt, I'll call your name and you will have time to come over and make your citizens' comments. So. Then let's just sit. Thank you. Okay, good evening. Welcome to our VPS Board of Directors meeting. Citizen comments is a time in our meeting where the board and administrative staff like to hear the comments from the public. If you wish to address the board and did not have an opportunity to sign in at the start of the meeting, please do so now. You may continue to sign in at any time during the citizen comments portion of the meeting, excuse me. Because most matters require fact-finding and review, the board is not able to respond to any public comments made at this time. Additionally, the state's Open Public Meetings Act restricts deliberation on topics that have not been placed on a publicly noticed agenda in advance. If follow-up action is necessary, the board will ask the superintendent to work with the administrative staff to consider the information and respond accordingly. As a regular business meeting of the board, we expect the audience to conduct themselves professionally and courteously. Additionally, speakers are expected to be respectful. Personnel complaints and personal attacks are not permitted. The board asks that personnel complaints be submitted in writing. We ask that you approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments. If you hear a chime, please conclude your remarks. If you have materials or additional comments you would like the board to review, please hand them to the back of the room and the board will receive them. This information will be provided to the superintendent and the board. The board appreciates, listens, and cares about the broad range of perspectives in our community. We thank you for your comments. One additional note, thank you again for wearing the mask. When you're at the podium, if you are more comfortable, you may remove your mask while you're speaking. The first speaker is Audrey Ivanov. Andrei Ivanov, excuse me.
Yeah, good afternoon. Can you all hear me? I lost my voice, so I have to kind of speak in a lower tone. Thanks for having me here. I know I invited myself, but I just wanted to briefly share a little bit about my history that directly relates to where we are today as a nation. 31 years ago, my family fled from the former Soviet Union. I was not old enough to feel the wrath of control of a government that chose to ignore the people. But I heard all the stories. I was raised with all of them. A lot of the stuff that I see today, a lot of the controlling measures and overreach and lack of interest in what the parents have to say, it bothers me a lot. I know everyone here understands what I'm saying, but it bothers me a lot. And I hope that we as a community, we as a people, not look for ways to divide ourselves on what we believe and what we not believe. But I hope that we as a people can simply just respect the voices of those who are crying out and asking to be heard. There's too much of this left and right when it's really about humanity. And if we get buried in red or blue, we will lose our very purpose and reason for existence. I love people. I was raised in this.
Sixteen-year-old male died of abdominal discomfort and some sort of aggravated condition that they're still trying to figure out 4 days after his last vaccine. 15-year-old male died on May 15th, 23 days after his vaccine. 16-year-old male died while taking his math on his Zoom class 27 days after his vaccine. 13-year-old male died 17 days after his vaccine, which was on June 6th or June 19th. His symptoms were too many to even read here, but he was previously healthy. He basically had a brain bleed. 17-year-old female died on 6 days after her vaccine, June 17th, cardiac arrest. And it just goes on. During Jay Inslee's July 28th press conference, he said, and I quote, "This is a safe vaccine. You don't grow antlers, you get your life saved, you protect your neighbors and your family. Virtually no grave problems with taking this vaccine." Do you think the parents, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, cousins, grandparents, and friends of these children? Inslee, 30% of Washingtonians are not taking this vaccine. We are not misinformed. We are not uneducated. We know what we're doing, and we are very educated. We are doctors, lawyers, teachers, engineers, corporate professionals, and most of all, we are parents. We know the numbers. We know the risk of getting COVID versus the vaccine. The risk is not there for COVID. There's no need for the shot. We are exercising our medical freedom for ourselves and our children. It is not my responsibility nor my children's to protect the majority of the population whom are looking for a fast food approach to their health. Have any of you had a child pass away? I have. My perfectly healthy little boy died in an accident on a family vacation in 2013. There are no words to express the catastrophic loss we have suffered. So if anyone wants to protect their children from illness and make sure they are safe, it is me. It will always be me, as I am their mother. Medical choices belong in the home, not in the school. And lastly, how and when have we ever vaccinated our children to protect older people? They get vaccinated to protect themselves against disease. And parents, I just want to say that if things get worse, take your kids out of the school, because that is the only way that they will listen to us. And we can do it. Thank you.
I'm going to ask, since we do have people live streaming from home who are trying to watch, if we could keep the applause and commentary down. We do want to make sure that we provide access to everyone, both at home and those who are here, those who are at Roosevelt. Thank you. Next, we have Marlena Shaw.
My name is Marlena Shaw, and I yield my time to Sally Snyder.
When you're ready, you'll have 6 minutes. Please state your name.
Thank you.
My name is Sally Snyder. RCW 28A 150-230, District School Director's Responsibilities. Purpose of this section to guarantee that each common school district board of directors be held accountable for the proper operation of their district to the local community. It shall be the responsibility of each common school district board of directors to adopt policies to evaluate teaching materials, including textbooks, teaching aids, handouts, or other printed materials in public hearing upon complaint by parents who consider dissemination of such materials to students objectionable. The vaccine clinic and vaccine webinar teaching materials did not tell the truth. This is a non-FDA approved drug and emergency use authorization of a vaccine. A vaccine clinic partnership with the Clark County Health Department and Ridgefield hidden from parents by the district for which they bused kids to. They only emailed this clinic information out to students asking them to fill out an anonymous form, telling them they could schedule their own appointments. If they had questions, to call the Clark County Health Department or message them on Instagram. There were 2 slides in the vaccine webinar from the Washington State Department of Health that were COVID facts. Yet these 2 slides were completely skipped over in the webinar lesson and never shown. I had to watch it 5 times to get these screenshots. The truth was hidden from students along with parents over and over. All the facts were not made clear in the teaching materials. From instruction policy 2331, controversial issues, guest speaker, policy 2020P, course design and selection, policy 2153, non-curriculum student groups, policy 2420P, homework, grading, and progress reports, policy 2320P, field trip and excursions, along with the Black Lives Matter webinar, U.S. Capitol Insurrection webinar, and Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander webinar. As previously stated, I went through proper channels. I require each of the school board directors to review the 146 pages of documents for your board responsibilities regarding my complaint of these materials. This slide from the last Clark County Health Department meeting shows 5 minors were vaccinated under the mature minor doctrine and parents could not be reached. This may not have happened at Columbia River, but these are the kinds of things that can happen when a school does not consider the role of the parents as first priority over their children. We don't want EUA PCR testing in our schools, especially since the district hid the vaccine clinic from parents. The board said they will do PCR testing as a convenience with no required PCR testing of students and staff. Testing will be fully optional. So because it's an optional convenience, you don't have to tell parents. This is a slippery slope. I heard in the board workshop meeting May 18th, it said that Inslee referenced this as a program. This. After 17 months, it's unethical and unconstitutional to force healthy children to abide by measures that can result in physical and emotional harm and that impinge on their ability to be healthy, well-adjusted individuals. Children have a right to be children. We should stop treating them like commodities that we can build one-size-fits-all mass policies around. This board has the ability to adopt policies that benefit all children. RCW 28A 320015, School Board of Directors powers. The Board of Directors of each school district has broad discretionary power to determine and adopt written policies. The Culver School District on July 30th wrote, "Dear families, every decision needs to be given to families, and we trust that they determine what they feel is best for vaccines. I will not tolerate any mandate that risks the safety, learning, or social development of our students. Our district will do whatever it takes to retain the stance of local decision-making and have masks be optional, honoring each family's wishes for their own students. These are our kids, not yours."
Thank you. Next, we have Lisa Parker.
Hello, everybody.
Will you please state your name for the
Oh,
record?
sorry, Lisa Parker, I'm in Vancouver. So I didn't really want to come here and go over a bunch of numbers. A lot of us know the science and all of the numbers, but I did want to come and tell a story that happened to me about 6 months ago. I have a son, and one evening we were doing our bedtime rituals and we were talking, and he was asking me, he was said, "Mom, is this going to go on for, the whole school closure, everything going on? Is this going to go on for years?" And all I could do was reassure him and say, "I don't know, but I hope not, and we'll get through it and it'll be okay." And he said to me, "Well, if it does, I'm going to commit suicide." My son's 9. So I just want to tell all of you that made me shocked and angry. I didn't even know that my son really understood suicide. I work in the district with behavioral children. I can only imagine what they're going through and have been going through for the last year plus. For my son, who's well-adjusted on sports teams and just a good kid, to say that, it's just shocking. And we need to stop mandating our kids to wear masks. Soon, I'm sure, to probably get vaccinated, and just to be closing down our schools. I mean, the kind of stuff that our children has gone through is abuse. There's going to be long-term effects from what has been going on. So I just wanted to tell you that story, because if these things don't touch everybody's heart and get you to think about what is really happening in the long term, then basically you just don't have a soul. And I know that sounds harsh, but what is going on is very, very scary, and everybody should be aware. As far as the masks go, I'm absolutely think that they are all a joke. Does anybody know how many kids age 0 to 19 have died in the state of Washington? None. Absolutely 0. This is according to the Washington Department of Health. Look it up. If they happen to get COVID, the survival rate is 99.9998. Okay, so the odds that if they do get it, they're going to be just fine. I myself had COVID in April. I have a couple of autoimmune diseases. Otherwise, I'm healthy. I ended up getting on some meds, some ivermectin, and I didn't do anything different in my home. My husband still slept in my bed. I'm almost done. And my son was around us. So I didn't get as close
Thank
and
you very
hugged.
much.
And he
I'm
was just fine.
Your time.
He
is
was just
completed.
fine. So.
Heidi Sapala.
Hi, I'm Heidi Sepala. I'm a mother of 4. Last year, we had 3 kids in the district doing remote learning until schools opened up. In our household alone, we averaged 55 to 60 Zoom calls per week. 10 to 12 alarms going off each day to get to the scheduled Zoom times. Constant communications with 3 separate teachers. Thankfully, had the ability to help my kids each day. It was an experience. I spoke last month against critical race theory, which interestingly enough was also removed from online under the guise of COVID misinformation. I encouraged our board to choose a better option for equity, one that doesn't attack the identity of our children, as well as urging them and our teachers to get back Get back to academics and quit trying to advance political. Sorry, this keeps cutting out. Quit trying to advance political agenda in school and in our kids' identities. Right now, we are saying, don't bring CRT to our schools, hoping we are heard and understood. If for some reason we are failed by our representation, by our representatives, and CRT passes, rest assured in future, we will be here saying, get that out of our schools. If I've learned anything from my kids, it is persistence. Get used to our faces. We will continue to speak up on behalf of our kids. As my word last month did not address COVID, please reinstate my comments on the board meeting video. Please know it is not my intent to burn any of you. What we are coming against are the agendas that are being protected and elevated over, above, and in place of our kids. Our oldest son has chosen a program in the district for this fall. He will go with eyes wide open to be able to deflect the fiery arrows targeting his identity. He will know his worth, and that because he is worth so much, he can treat others the same because they were created equal. Our younger two, we are removing from public school. Thank you.
Next, we have Savannah Reynolds.
My name is Savannah Reynolds, and I reside as a student in the Vancouver Public School System. Let me first start off by saying that out of 74.2 million children in the US, less than 400 have died of COVID-19, according to the CDC. That's not even 1%. Yet you're telling us that we have to sit down, shut up, and muzzle our faces for 6+ hours a day. I'm told that I can't have an orchestra concert because it's too risky. The hypocrisy is blatantly obvious. And to quote Dr. Fauci from an email he sent to Sylvia Burwell, quote, "The typical mask you buy in the drugstore is not really effective in keeping out the virus, which is small enough to pass through material," close quote. Even Dr. Fauci knows that masks don't work. In 2019, I had a class period where upwards of 14 kids were missing in one day from the flu. Yet no one freaked out. So why the hysteria over a virus that perpetually doesn't kill anyone in my demographic? I thought all of these measures were being taken for our safety. And the mask mandates upon schools. You and I both know they are useless. Moreover, in this district, the fact that writing papers on the exponential threat that socialism holds could cost me my grade. Teachers have quivered in fear of elementary students for having masks under their nose. Tests are being politically driven with one way to only answer the questions. And teachers are telling 12-year-olds that their opinion is unvalued because they're a, quote, upper-class white male, which is absolutely ridiculous. What happened to teaching children to love learning and how to work hard and take responsibility? I call upon you as board members to heed counsels from the students. We are tired of being pawns in a game that you play with the government. Thank you.
Thank you. Valerie Anderson. Valerie Anderson. Please state your name and you'll have 3 minutes when you're ready.
My name is Valerie Anderson. I live on T Street. My son is going to be a junior at Hudson's Bay High School, or not. Honestly, we're not sure. As a college graduate and the daughter of educators, I never thought I'd say this, but I honestly don't think the public schools have anything of value to offer my son. At this point, I think he'd be better off dropping out and getting a job. VPS seems to think that my son is being treated inequitably because he's Black. I have one question for you, rhetorical, of course. How would you know? He hasn't been in a classroom in a year and a half, for all intents and purposes. You haven't seen his face. You haven't seen the other students' faces. How would you know if they aren't being treated equitably? They haven't truly been taught by teachers in VPS in a very long time. Our children are abysmally behind academically, yet VPS seems heck-bent, don't want to use any bad words, on wasting precious time and taxpayer money on CRT, comprehensive sex curriculum, and an obsessive and unscientific risk aversion to COVID-19. I don't need public schools to teach my child about race relations. We are a mixed race family, as is a huge population of the VPS students. I've got that covered, believe me. I don't need you to talk to my child about sex. I'm raising a teenage boy in a culture that's saturated with it. And I don't need you to make any health decisions regarding my child. Public school employees can be vaccinated or not. Work with the public or not, just like any other sector of the population. As a frontline medical worker who has worked with COVID positive patients throughout the lockdowns, I've completely lost respect for people who call themselves educators, yet refuse to educate themselves with the actual statistics and risks or lack thereof of a virus that has almost nothing to do with children. To date, not a single person under the age of 30 has died of or with COVID in 500,000 people in Clark County. Get our kids back to school. Quit wasting time with superfluous agendas and tormenting them with unnecessary masking and distancing. If you can't educate our children, you serve no purpose in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Isaiah Anderson. Isaiah Anderson. Okay, thank you. Rosella Anderson.
My name is Rosella Anderson. I live on Minnehaha Street. I'm a grandmother and a great-grandmother. I'm a former school teacher, and I can't even imagine a classroom with children and young people in masks. It will affect their learning. I promise it will. I can't even imagine. I have a granddaughter who is homeschooling her children, 4 of them, and she's doing a great job. And I will encourage her to continue. I'm saddened by what is going on in the public school, very saddened, concerned about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Marta Gray. Marta Gray. Marta Gray.
Hi, my name is Marta Gray. I'm quite a talker, so I wrote some things down, so I'm going to use paper. First of all, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my vantage point today. I have been a teacher in Vancouver Public Schools for 31 years, and I am the parent of 2 students who have just graduated from this school district. While I personally, myself as Marta, agree with the sentiment shared with many of the parents here today, I personally am sick to death of wearing masks. That's how you truly feel. And I miss seeing the smiles of kids each day. And this whole COVID experience, Zoom and everything, has been awful. However, I am pleading with you to listen to something that I have seen and to consider the vantage point that I have experienced. When you are making a decision, Superintendent Snell and the school board, about our mask policy, I want you to consider the fact that some kids will be home if we don't have a mask policy because their parents are afraid. And while everybody can come and share a lot of statistics and a lot of information, that doesn't change the fact that some parents are fearful. I have personally experienced what it's like for kids who have not been at school, who are isolated in their bedroom. And I don't know the name of the lady that spoke, but I know what you're talking about. I have dealt with kids and made counseling referrals for kids who have felt terrible, terrible emotional turmoil from being alone and feeling ostracized. I've taught middle school for the bulk of my career. And here is my concern. I don't want another kid to spend another minute doing the drudgery of Zoom. I've struggled as a teacher myself with remote learning. I've struggled with it with my children. Last year took an emotional and academic and mental health toll on all of our kids and our entire community. It has been a heartbreaking experience. But I want you to understand something. Half of the kids in this school district are not eligible to have a vaccine. And whether you agree with their parents or not, there are many parents who will not send their kids to school because they are fearful. And I feel the need to speak out for those kids, regardless of the inconvenience of this freaking mask and the fact that I'm sick to death of it. I don't like having to deal with the behavior issues, but I'll tell you what, I don't want even one of my kids to go through that emotional heartbreak of being isolated, feeling abandoned, and the stress and pain of sitting on Zoom. And that is why I'm here today to ask the school board to please, even though it's an inconvenience, implement a mask policy so that as many kids as possible can show up at school to have as normal of a year as possible. It's a small freaking price to pay so that no kid has to suffer in their bedroom alone. I really appreciate you listening to me. I'm sorry if I've offended anybody. That's not my purpose. I care about my kids.
I'm going to ask again if we can just keep the applause to the, if we can please keep the applause to a minimum. Next, we have Jeremy Baker.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Baker. I have 4 young men that, boys, sons that I'm making men, right? And so what's going on in this society today is quite concerning, and I'm beside myself. This first board meeting I've ever been to, and it may not be my last. I wanted to talk about the equity versus equality. I think this is a great disservice to our children. Our children are born in innocence. They are innocent young individuals. It's our society that takes that away from them. Our society takes that away from them. And I read that equity versus equality survey that you guys spent so much money on, and it was disgusting. You guys are teaching my kids that they are different than the kids that they sit next to. They're the same. As long as you keep dividing us, we will be divided. Division happens because we divide. Our society is so good at it. Look at us. Mask, not mask. Vaccine, not vaccine. We're divided. Why is that? Because they want us scared. Just like that last lady was talking about. They want us scared to death to send our kids to school so they can be children. It's ridiculous. So I'm here today to encourage you to take a stand. Do what's right for my children. I've taken 2 of my children out of your school district because of what you did last year. I am fortunate. I came from nothing. We stood in line to get the big chunk of cheese and the powdered milk out of the Fred Meyer parking lot when I was growing up. My dad worked hard. I worked hard. My wife, she takes care of my boys. And then you're going to take it all away from me because you're going to give more treatment to someone else because my boys have a father that loves them and a mother that loves them, and they want to take care of them. Think hard on what you're doing. You're dividing us, and it's not necessary. Thanks.
Monica Winkler, Monica Winkler.
Hi, Monica Winkley. I am, let's see, citizen of Vancouver. I'm a teacher in a neighboring district, and I'm a parent of two daughters who, the youngest recently graduated here in the Vancouver Public Schools. And really, a lot of thoughts. I appreciate a forum like this. I do really want to encourage all of us to consider, I'm going to keep my comments to masks. They are the way to protect in-person school. I have lived the experience of kids upstairs, downstairs, my husband in the basement teaching as a teacher in the Vancouver Public Schools, me on one level and my kids upstairs and Comcast dropping. I get it. I also know from my experience teaching in a small high school in neighboring in Camas that many of our kids needed to be back with each other and with us. And the way we were able to do that, and we started bringing kids back at the end of September last year, way pre-vaccine, still trying to figure it out, doing the best we could, scrubbing down surfaces to welcome them back. And masks were not a problem for my students. Did we like them? No. Would we choose to wear them if and when hopefully all of this is over? Probably not. Although I've found some cute patterns, nothing I'm going to stick with to make an outfit in the future, but this will keep us together in school. It protects my several family members who are healthcare professionals who are devastated by the treatment they are getting from the communities, and this is across our country, where this doesn't really feel to them like too much to ask of all of us. I teach about the social contract. Many people have spoken tonight very well about bringing us together. And I'd like us to consider this, medically fragile kids. I taught a student this year who was able to be in person after his mom came and checked out how we were doing school. He recently, and the year prior, had a kidney transplant, was able to come to school. We were able to prevent cross-infection. Even if we're wrong, even if the risk isn't that high, I'm not willing to risk that student. I'm not willing to risk in-person school for the rest of our students. I'd really encourage us to find at least one piece of common ground, and this may be a tough sell, but I'd say that piece of common ground honestly could be masks. It could be, even if we're wrong, what is the harm that would come? And I have worked with my own children. I have worked with their friends and with my students. The
Thank you
students
very
weren't the
much.
ones complaining. Thank you.
Carrie Van Ostren.
Good afternoon. My name is Carrie Van Ostren. I live at 2907 East 24th Street. I am a proud Vancouver educator and all the prouder to represent Vancouver's educators as the VEA president. And I recognize that our association plays a key role in welcoming educators and ensuring that educators in Vancouver feel seen and heard. And that same role is the role our educators themselves play on behalf of students, ensuring that they are welcoming them and ensuring students are feeling seen and heard. So as association president and as an ongoing educator, I am grateful for the opportunity to partner with Vancouver Public Schools around culturally responsive practices in the classroom through opportunities in professional development and training, and recognize that the social and emotional needs of our students and the work we are prioritizing on behalf of them goes hand in hand with those culturally responsive practices. The purpose behind both of these pieces is to bridge relationship across differences, preventing some of the division that was alluded to previously, instilling hope in the students and the families that we serve, because we all as human beings are dignified enough to receive it. And we also know that bridging that relationship is what supports us in leveraging academic success for the students that we serve as well. We deserve, as students of Vancouver Public Schools and staff, to feel safe and supported. The fear-mongering and exposure to racist rhetoric causes long-lasting harm, especially among students and staff of color. I want to assure you that Vancouver educators will remain steadfast in our commitment to equitable outcomes for our students. And again, we are grateful for the opportunities both in staff development and in bridging community partnerships, bringing in families to the schools so that there is common understanding of the actual school experience that Vancouver Public Schools has offered us. We look forward to that continued partnership. And we hope that we can extend that same invitation to families, to community members as well, that you would join us in that sense of welcome, of ensuring that our students and educators are being seen and heard, creating as inclusive a community as possible, because the students of our schools and the educators also depend on it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I apologize in advance if I mispronounce this. Chipo Salads.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
We can. Please state your name, and when you're ready, you'll have 3 minutes.
Sure, my name is Chipo Sawards. I am a Vancouver School District employee, but I'm not here on behalf of the district. I'm also a union vice president for classified employees, and I'm not here as a union representative for classified employees. I'm here as a parent of a high schooler who's starting high school, from middle school is starting high school this fall. Just wanted to share a little bit of my story. I was born in Zambia, Central Africa. I'm a little bit emotional right now because what's been happening in the country has been really heartbreaking to see. And I came when I was 14 years old. My aunt and uncle were diplomats who lived in New York City. I met people from all walks of life. My middle school experience was, I would say, the worst. I was bullied. They're like, Africans are ugly, you know, they're big lips, and you're a monkey. And I was bullied by people my own color. So the people that hated me were Black. And the people that defended me were white. My teacher would hide me behind his back every day to protect me from the kids. So that was my middle school experience. High school, the Black kids will say that, oh, she wants to be white. She says she's a diplomat. Her dad is a diplomat, so she wants to be white. Again, people that befriended me were Indian, they were Spanish, Japanese, from all walks of life. And I'm saying all this to say that I find it very disturbing with CRT, because to say that white people are inherently racist is a lie. It's not true. I lived the experience of people who protected me were white. People who hated me were Black. I want to welcome a new superintendent and also the school board. I just want to tell you that please listen to the voice of parents. They're crying out to you to make the right decisions. They're crying out to you to make the decisions that will affect their kids for the rest of their lives. My son, his dad is half white. His dad is white, so my son is half Black. So this comprehensive CRT in teaching that white people are inherently racist. It's very disturbing to my son because it alienates him from his own dad. And that's not true and that's not right. Regarding comprehensive sex education, I just wanted to say that I would like the board to seriously consider. Am I done? Okay. Well, thank you.
Richard Erickson. Is there a Richard Erickson in here? They're getting him. Please state your name. You'll have 3 minutes when you're ready.
Richard Erickson, 1016 Northwest 144th Circle, District 18. And for the record, I don't think addresses should be part of the public record. Now, a lot of the talk on masks is really crucial to the kids because the masks don't do a darn thing for anybody. And that's the truth. And the science is showing it day by day. Now, I was going to present something, but I just heard the news. Can you hear me through this mask? Oh, thank you. Now I can even breathe. And I asked the last time I was up here, what is the purpose of you sitting that distance away from me wearing masks just because somebody told you you had to? Was that it? Really? Was that it? Well, I just heard on the news that 46 states have moved to either strip or limit their governor's pandemic powers, arguing that they have overextended their authority. The CDC director, when asked, admitted, quote, "We do not have rigorous data to show that the Delta variant is more dangerous for kids." And there's a lot of good science that states that. Unfortunately, the CDC hasn't sampled more than 1.5% of the tests that have been out there to determine that it's very dangerous. And the fact is that the COVID virus is a common cold virus that was specifically engineered from bats to infect humans. The CDC is sentencing kids for another school year of irrational masking because adults can't evaluate risk. Kids continue to suffer the most from COVID policy. This is despite the fact that children are the least affected group in the entire global setting, and not just the US. Now, some of you may have heard a viral video that was started about 3 days ago from the Mount Vernon Community School by Dr. Dan Stork. Anyways, I don't know if this is going to work, but I wanted to see if I could play the introduction.
We're 18 months into this and still having a problem, and I would suggest the reason we still have a problem is because we're doing things that are not useful, and we're getting our sources of information from the Indiana State Board of Health and the CDC, who actually don't bother to read science before they do this. I'm actually a functional family medicine physician. That means I am specially trained
Thank you very
in knowledge
much.
and information regulation. And
Next,
everything being recommended.
thank
by
you
the
very
CDC
much.
and State
Next,
Board
we
of
have
Health is
Bobby
actually contrary to
Evenson.
all the rules of science. They are spread by aerosol particles, which are small enough to go through every mask. By the way, the literature that supports all of that is in a flash drive.
Thank you very much. We'll have a brief recess. Thank you very much, sir. It's time. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Evenson, if you'll give us a quick pause before you start, we're going to just test the technology. Is the video working?
The middle of your speech was cut out as well, just so you know. Again.
When you're ready, please state your name.
My name is Bobby Evenson. There's a reason why tech companies added emojis to text messaging. They show emotion. Emojis allow the recipient to understand the feel of the message. Part of being human is human interaction. School-age kids, whether they're at school or not, learning how to interact with each other by reading each other's faces and emotions. If they are forced to cover their faces, how will they develop emotionally? How will they know how something they did or said made someone else feel? Before COVID shutdowns and mask mandates, elementary schools had posters with pictures of faces on them with many different emotions featured. The school counselors could use these posters to help kids understand how they themselves or how others were feeling. It's not just happy and sad. You've got disappointed, disbelieving, exhausted, happy, hopeful, loved, lonely, frustrated, embarrassed, depressed, angry. I mean, there's tons of them, tons of different ways we express ourselves with our faces. How will they develop self-confidence in social situations when they and their friends have their faces covered? What will be the long-term effects on our society? What are masks made of? How often do disposable ones need to get changed out? How often do reusable masks get washed? What chemicals are in those detergents used to clean them between uses? Are they safe for our lungs? Does each child in our district have equal opportunity to a clean, chemical-free mask? If a mask accumulates germs on the outside, does the mask act as a shield? Science says virus particles are very small. By mandating mask wearing, is the school district prepared to be liable for the consequences? I don't think parents will brush off the severe side effects that their children will endure. My children went to in-person school last year. In class, no one looked at them when they spoke. Other classmates didn't know who was speaking. When others gave their input, my children didn't know who to look at. Spending time figuring out the mystery of who's talking takes away from the focus in class. I know 3 children, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders that have speech impediments. This problem has been amplified by having their faces covered. Why doesn't the district make wearing masks a choice? We parents love our kids. We want what's best for them. Each family should have the freedom to decide what's best for their kids. For me and my kids, eyeballs and eyebrows aren't enough.
Jennifer Hine. Sorry, I can't read the last name. Whipple. When you're ready, you'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Heine-Withy, and I am actually from the Battleground area, but I'm also the director of Washington Parents' Rights in Education. So I was asked to come here and speak on a couple of subjects. One of them is masks and the other is CRT. So I understand the concerns of the board and the teachers and the parents about opening schools safely. I get that some teachers are afraid, some parents are afraid, but who wouldn't be afraid considering what we have gotten from the media? Mask up to stay safe, cases, cases, cases. But I'd like to put that into perspective. Children are more likely to be struck by lightning and be killed that way than by COVID. Teenagers are more likely to die falling down a flight of stairs than from COVID. And most teachers, they're more likely to die in a car accident on their way to their job than from COVID. Forcing masks on kids is really cruel. And a lot of people this evening have said, what's wrong with just wearing a mask? Well, I'll tell you. So after wearing a mask for a day, what is in that mask? Pneumonia, tuberculosis, Lyme disease, diphtheria, Legionnaire's disease, meningitis. This is all from having masks tested. You know what they didn't find in these masks? COVID. I have with me today some studies on the efficacy of masking the general population. Unfortunately, I couldn't bring all of my studies I wanted to, but I found 18 different studies that state that masking the general population to control a virus does not work. From the CDC to the New England Journal of Medicine to Fauci's team and even Fauci himself. I have a couple of them here for you that I will give you, and the rest I sent you the links. But I also want to talk about CRT. Parents are concerned about critical race theory being taught to their kids. CRT was never meant to be taught to grade schoolers. It was meant to be a college course in upper graduate work in a law program. I want to read you some things that are told to me from parents all across the state. My 4th grade son has come home the last 3 days from school telling me about what he learned that day about racism. Mommy, today we were shown pictures of people and we're supposed to say if they were black or white. And that was one way to tell if a person was black because they have thicker lips.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Messer. Lisa Messer. Good evening. While you're at the podium, you're welcome to take your mask off. Please state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm Lisa Messer. I live at 8006 Northeast 27th Street, 98662. So many friendly faces here tonight. Thank you, board members and Superintendent Snell, for the opportunity to speak tonight. I would like to thank you for your hard work this year, for our students in our district. As a teacher in a neighboring district, I know that the decisions that have been made the last 18 months have not been easy. But as a parent of students in this district, I support those decisions, and especially those that show that the safety of our students and our staff members is being valued and taken seriously. As the mother of a medically fragile student in the district, I appreciate the respect that you have shown for the needs of our students. And additionally, my time at home with my own son and daughter all school year has shown me how much our teachers care about our students and their dedication to their learning. And this has only increased my support for the staff and the teachers and everyone involved in the district. And it has also increased my support for the curriculum and the resources that the district has available. And I want you board members to know that you have my support And my congratulations on the work that you have done and accomplished this year. I know we all wanted to do more, but it's been a little weird this year. And I really look forward to what's laying ahead and the decisions that are going to be made in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Emily Reynolds.
My name is Emily Reynolds, and I'll be speaking on masks in relation to mental health. The wearing of masks and making children feel as if they are different or don't belong if they do not wear masks or agree with the wearing of masks is taking a tremendous toll on the mental health and the social skills of children. I myself am a senior in high school, and my friends and my peers are suffering. Making children wear masks is hurting us. It's driving children and my peers to turn to options that are life-ending. Let us go to school. Let us freely breathe. You push to teach us equality, yet our peers and teachers discriminate those who don't agree with the masks. Students and youth are the future of this nation and of this world we live in, and teaching children to hate those who don't agree or treat those who don't agree with them differently is not what this country or the school district needs. This country was built on the foundation of freedom and the freedom to choose. So I ask you to please let us choose. Let us go to school. Let us learn and let us grow to become a strong future of this nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Carr. Kathy Carr.
My name's Kathy Carr. I've been a resident of Clark County my whole life. I have 4 children that graduated from this district. I have 7 grandchildren, 2 of which are in the Vancouver schools. And I wasn't going to speak, but after listening to a few of you, here we're talking about the education of our children. Doesn't it start with us? I'm embarrassed. We want to present to one another. We want masks. We don't want masks. I'm not for masks. I'm not going to go where there's a mask. I think it's right an idiot on your forehead. Tell me the facts about masks if you want me to wear a mask. I'm not going to tell you you're going to feel good. Let's all feel good and let Johnny feel good so we can all wear masks together, knowing that it's wrong. And so we have to stand up together and carry each other with courage to fight this battle and find out the real truths. Inslee doesn't have the right to take our power. There is no emergency that can override our constitutional rights. And we're talking about education. And the education in Vancouver School District isn't a lot to be proud of as far as the scores. And you want to base it off the scores. We should add educating our children on their God-given rights, the Constitution. We can't take those away. So when we're afraid, the first thing when we were exposed to the lockdowns, everybody complied. And when we're afraid, we want to do what we have to do to be safe. Without thinking, we just automatically do that. But a group of us get a chance and we're going to check it out. We want to really see what's behind it because maybe we can do something to help move things along in a positive way. Last summer, we had that thick smoke. Oh my gosh. And I had to work in it and I was trying to figure out how to get around it. So I got on the internet and found out the air quality early on. And one thing that I don't watch the Main Street media, but I thought I'll get out there and see what the weather's going to be. When's the smoke going to lift so I can plan my work accordingly. One thing that they did say that I found alarming is these masks that we're told to wear do not protect us from the smoke. And the virus particles were 1/3 the size of the smoke particles. So hello, people. So do you realize the dirtiest place on your body? It's your rear end.
Thank you.
We think it's our mouth.
Melissa Bergman.
Hi, my name is Melissa Bergman. I'm a parent of of two VPS students. I'm also a teacher. I was going to talk about masks, but I'm going to quickly talk about the critical race theory that people keep freaking out about. So I just want to start saying racism and racist thinking is alive and well. And to be honest with you, I've kind of seen it in this room. It's making me very uncomfortable with a lot of you. To address the other Black woman, colorism, yeah, it's definitely a problem. And I'm glad she was able to find people who were able to support her. But the problem is there's a problem within our own community, as in many other communities, right? So we need to deal with that within our own communities. Then we can actually come together and figure this all out, because racism is a huge problem in our country. And it's because of racist ideals that our country was built on. Okay, this country was built on the backs of Black people, Native Americans, Chinese people. They built the railroads. Like, this is a problem. It's ingrained in our society, in our culture in America. But the thing is, we need teachers. Teachers need PD in order to teach our students. Okay, we don't need critical race theory. It's not meant for students, right, that are K-12. But we do need to teach our age-appropriate and accurate history, and not the whitewashed version. Okay, so I just want to speak to that point real quick. So as a teacher, I worked with many students, and none of them had problems with the mask. I have a preschooler; she wore her mask. It's just, the problem is the parents. You guys make a big freaking deal about it, and it's just put the mask on. It's not that big of a deal. Who cares? It doesn't work. We're trying to save lives right now. If it, are you serious? It's a mask. Wear the dang mask. And I love that reaction was from you guys. The lone Black woman who says wear the mask, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter because you will still save lives. Child abuse, it's a mask. So once again, racism is alive and well that we're seeing, because I am the lone person that they had a problem with. And you're gonna take me a picture and you can stalk me like a crazy person? So what is the point? Okay, I feel very uncomfortable and very unsafe right now. So if I have any allies here, that'd be really great. Anyways, I will conclude my remarks by saying this is amazing that they're so, the mask is, we've been told the mask, it is what it is, okay? If it does not work, then we're still saving lives. We don't know. This is still a new virus. So the fact that you guys are calling this child abuse is hilarious. And once again, your reaction speaks to your character, because I am the lone Black woman who's speaking up here about how masks, just wear the dang mask. We're trying to save kids. We're trying to save adults, okay? So why is this being allowed, again, for him to talk to me this way? I feel very uncomfortable with him. Thank you for being a true ally. So I'm going to conclude my remarks. Thank you.
Heather Lindbergh. Please state your name and you'll have 3 minutes when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Heather Lindbergh, and I spoke at last month's meeting, and then something kind of incredible happened, which is that my family got hit with COVID. So what happened was my unvaccinated niece came home from camp and brought COVID home to my unvaccinated brother, who ended up in the hospital. And we're one of the lucky ones who got out, but kids absolutely can and will bring COVID home. Now, my unvaccinated brother also got my mother sick, who was vaccinated. And then that put us on a path
because my mom was around my kids of a 10-day quarantine and 2 negative COVID tests. And I'm telling you, without masks in schools, we are going to have shutdowns like that. We're going to have entire classrooms shut down. We're going to have entire schools shut down. Before COVID hit, just before COVID hit, we had a stomach bug going around that nearly shut down an entire elementary school because they didn't have enough staff to teach the students. This is going to happen time and time again. And I'm telling you that 10 days with an 11-year-old who's not quite able to get vaccinated, being stuck at home, not being able to be around her grandmother who she adores and her grandma's brand new cats who she might actually adore slightly more, was a very, very difficult experience in our house. And I'm telling you that it is going to happen time and time again. I don't love masks. I think it's adults, really and truly, like we are so stuck in what we do and how inconvenient things are to us, and kids just roll. I haven't had one kid come to me and tell me that they had a difficult time with a mask. I mean, I'm the one who like rips it off the second they get out of the stores. And sometimes I get all the way into our driveway and realize my kids didn't even remember it was on their own faces. So I think that we really do need to look at this. And I want to tell you guys more than anything else, though, thank you. Thank you for looking out for the best interest of students. I know because there are masks and that we're looking at a fall with masks, that there are the people who show up to these meetings are oftentimes anti-mask. But I'm telling you that the people at home, the people who are watching this on Zoom, most of them are pro-mask. Parents are generally pro-mask because they see that it doesn't really impact their child, but it does help to make their child safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Tynan. Stephanie Tynan.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Will you please state your name for the
my name is
record?
Stephanie Tynan. I live at 200 Gwynn Road, Kalama, Washington, 98625. And I'm a third grade teacher within the district. And I urge all of you to consider making masks optional for the people who need them optional for their own medical needs, myself included. And thank you for being here and listening to all of us tonight. Thanks.
John Benson. Please state your name for the record and then you'll have 3 minutes.
John Benson. Hello, I'm a parent. I have 2 kids in the district, and I've seen a lot of changes in my kids in the last year from everything that's going on, and I appreciate what you guys do. And I'm glad that I have the opportunity to talk about it. I want to talk in opposition of CRT. You know, I grew up here. I went to these schools, and we used to bring the flag out and do Pledge of Allegiance and sing patriotic songs, and a lot of that's gone away. That's good. That's good. So at the school that I went to, they don't do that in the school that my kid goes to. And what they did do was do the Zoom last year, and that created a lot of issues for my family and my kids, and just from their appearance to their demeanor to just their general outlook towards the schools. And the CRT stuff is just everything that I've been following up for a long time. And there's a lot of people that I talk to that are really against it, and a lot of people that I talk to that don't even know about what it means. And I'm really thankful that I grew up in a world after Dr. Martin Luther King, was here, because I don't know what it would be like if I grew up before his time. And I'm glad that I grew up after his impact. But I think he would be up here talking against the CRT as well. And most everybody that I know feels the same way. And it's just, the wokeism from the school in the last year, during the Spanish history stuff, we were, there was a slew of people that you could choose from, and it is really left leaning and left. We're registered Democrats. That's but it's really skewed. You could pick people that weren't even done with their first term to do your report on, but you couldn't pick people that had right-leaning. There's Hispanic people that they didn't offer. We were forced to do kind of Pablo Picasso, and the imaging that we got, there was nude photos that was exposed to my fourth grader son. And we do our job to try to prevent him from do that in our household. We prevent our kids from seeing nudity, and they're at school. That's where he got his nudity, was from Vancouver.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone, for participating in the public comment portion tonight. We are moving on to our regular business agenda. Just as a reminder, this work, everything that we'll be approving, we have previously discussed, and this is just the final action items. The first item is the approval of minutes from February 11th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion. I'll second.
Thank you. We will proceed with the vote. Director Zavala. I agree. Okay, Director Decker. A motion. I agree. Sorry. Director Barrows. Approve. And Director Smith. Approve. Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. This is for instructional and administrative support services and our fiscal support services. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Director Smith.
Approve.
Director Barrows.
Approve.
Director Decker.
Approve.
Director Savala. Approve. And I also approve. For our regular business, we have for instructional and administrative support services, a recommendation to approve resolution 881 and a real estate purchase and sale agreement with Begin Group.
Thank you. The school district owns approximately 3.94 acres of property located between Fourth Plain Boulevard, Washington State Route 500, and west of Falk Road, which is known as Fir Grove. Begin Group is interested in purchasing an approximate 3.94 acres for development of low-income housing. District staff have reviewed Begin Group's proposal and has determined that the property is not needed for future district use. The property may be conveyed to Begin Group per RCW 39.33 intergovernmental disposition of property. In order to transfer the property, certain provisions must be followed. Specifically, the district must advertise its intent to surplus and transfer the property, hold a public hearing regarding the transfer of the property, and publish a news release pertaining to the hearing. These conditions have all been satisfactorily met, and it is recommended that the district enter into a purchase and sale agreement with Ging Group for the disposition of the property. District legal counsel have prepared a purchase and sale agreement and has been reviewed by Ging Group. The agreed purchase price for the property is $2.6 million based on a fair market real estate appraisal. The proceeds will be deposited into the capital projects fund as described by state statute. The funds may only be used for capital improvements or purchase of real estate. A copy of the agreement is attached. District recommendation is that the board would approve this resolution.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments about this item? Okay, we will proceed with a vote. Director Smith?
Approve.
Director Barrows?
Approve.
Director Decker?
Approve.
And Director Zavala?
Approve.
Okay, and I also approve. Motion passes. We have a recommendation to approve a real estate purchase and sale agreement with the Vancouver Housing Authority.
So a similar rationale, the school district owns approximately 10.89 acres of property located on the east side of Leaser Road and south of Mill Plain Boulevard, commonly known as Leaser School. The Vancouver Housing Authority is interested in purchasing the approximate 10.89 acres for development of low-income housing and limited neighborhood commercial uses. District staff has reviewed the VHA proposal and has determined that the property is not needed for future district use. The property may be conveyed to the VHA per RCW 39.33 intergovernmental disposition of property. In order to transfer the property, certain provisions must be followed. Specifically, the district must advertise its intent to surplus and transfer the property, hold a public hearing regarding the transfer of the property, and publish a news release pertaining to the hearing. These conditions have all been satisfactorily met, and it is recommended that the district enter into a purchase and sales agreement with the VHA for the disposition of the property. District legal counsel have prepared a purchase and sales agreement and has been reviewed by VHA. The agreed purchase price for the property is $2.6588 million based on a fair market real estate appraisal. The proceeds will be deposited into the capital projects funds as prescribed by state statute. The funds may only be used for capital improvements or purchase of real estate. A copy of the agreement is attached. The district recommendation would be to approve this resolution.
Do I have a motion?
I'll motion. I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments about this recommendation?
I just think it's great that we're getting more housing.
Okay, Director Zavala?
I approve.
Director Decker?
Approve.
Director Barrows?
Approve.
And Director Smith?
Approve.
And I also approve. The next item on our agenda is actually our annual budget. We will be recessing our meeting to hold a public hearing for our 2021-2022 budget. At this point, I would like to invite administrative staff up to give a presentation about our budget process.
Approved is a very thick state mandated document that is available on our website. My intention tonight is to share a few slides that summarize the content of that and hit the highest priority items. So the first thing that we typically want to explain to our public and anybody else is the district's actually budget consists of 5 distinct funds. There's the general fund where most of our activity and operations are funded and paid for, but we also have 4 very distinct legally separated funds that must be acted on as well. Transportation Vehicle Fund is very narrowly focused on just buying bus vehicles for the school district. It's funded by a state depreciation formula, and so very limited ins and outs of that. Our capital projects fund is something most of us are a little more familiar with. We have recently passed a bond in 2017, so we're still spending the residual funds from that bond and making significant improvements to our facilities, including new schools, replacement schools, and other significant improvements. Debt service fund is a dedicated fund that simply collects the taxes for those voter approved bonds and makes the payments on those debt instruments, those bonds. Lastly, associated student body is money that is raised at the schools by the students and is governed largely by the student councils at each school. Again, as they collect money and raise money through their activities, they oversee the primary level of expenditures on that. The board must act on the actual budget though as well. So when we look at those distinct funds, you can kind of see the proportionality. General fund consumes the vast majority of, or collects the vast majority of resources. That's where all of our operations are funded. As we've gone through the bond cycle, capital has increased in percentage, but typically the other funds are very much secondary to the general fund and when we look at the entire budget. On the expenditure side, since we are spending some residual capital funds, those previously sold bonds, there is a greater proportion in the capital side for at least one more year, and then we'll start to see that fade. And again, the largest share will be in the general fund. Looking more specifically at the general fund, this is a graph to demonstrate where our revenue comes from. You can see that the largest share of our revenue comes from the state. That is our basic education funding, or what some people call apportionment funding. There's another significant piece, that green off to the left, which is the state special purpose funding. Those would be grants for students that are falling behind. It might be our special education programming and a number of other special purpose areas that we have to spend those dollars in those areas. Typically, we would see our federal funding closer to 8 or 9%, but because of the ESSER funding, which is the federal stimulus dollars, we see a larger share of our total budget being funded by the federal government this year. And then lastly, we have local taxes and a couple other minor kind of catch-all for fees and that sort of thing. Moving on to the expenditure side, again, just in the general fund, you would see is we would expect that the lion's share of our expenditures are made directly into classroom instruction. The second biggest share is classroom support. So that would include our libraries, our counseling services, those types of support services, but certainly based in schools and supporting students directly. We have another category of expenses, building supports. That would be more of our maintenance and nutrition service and transportation aspects. So that's supporting the operations in the building, but not necessarily directly contacting students instructionally. And then lastly, our smallest piece is central administration. If we look at the last couple of years, we've seen a little bit of a shift more and more towards direct classroom instruction. And the other, like for instance, last year, I think direct classroom instruction was 56% and some change. And so we've seen a small migration of dollars from these other areas supporting services into the direct classroom support. The fund balances, which is basically the term that we use for our cash reserves or the district savings account. You can see that we begin the 21-22 budget year with bottom line total of about $38.5 million. We're anticipating a slight surplus revenue in 2021-22, which would increase that fund balance to approximately $39 million. Of that fund balance, you can see that not all of it is free and clear for the district to do whatever it wants with. The first 5 items on this list are actually externally mandated either by law or by others governance. And they account for almost a third of that ending fund balance, just under $13 million. The other chunks of fund balance that are represented here, the district does have some discretion. But you can see that there are specific purposes by which some of those funds have been set aside. For instance, assigned to contingency for employment stabilization. We've had a very volatile period of time relating to enrollment. And so there's $7 million set aside for future volatility potentially. There's capital projects, which would be our pools and our artificial turf, athletic facilities. And then when we look at the other big assigned purpose, special purposes, that $11 million, the lion's share of that is new school opening funds. So when we open 2 new schools, which we will be shortly, we have to staff those with certain fixed positions such as custodial staff, libraries, office staff. And so we will be relying on this dedicated pool of money instead of having to cut other buildings to match that level of staffing at those new schools. There will be a slide at the very end that talks about our 4-year trajectory relating to fund balance. So I'll leave it at that for now. Legally, we have to annually at this budget hearing, we have to disclose what the relationship between our budgeted expenditures and state funding for an acronym that we call MSOC. That's basically material, supplies, and operating costs. So that's all the non-salary related dollars in the budget. We have to compare what we're planning to spend to state funding per statute. So you can see that we are budgeting to spend slightly more than what we're collecting in those areas. And then when that condition occurs, there's no further disclosure or discussion that's required. If the inverse was true, we would have to disclose what we're doing with the other MSOC money instead of spending it in those areas. So as I mentioned, we are looking at, and the state requires us to look at our budget through not only the 1-year operating budget, which is the most binding element of this document, but about 2 or 3 years ago, the states began requiring that we present a 4-year forecast so that they can monitor better our sustainability and what our long-term projections look like. So you can see that our fund balance is projected to increase again slightly in 2022-23. That would be the last year of our ESSER funding, that federal stimulus funding that I referred to. After that, we will be slowly reducing those cash reserves or fund balance to sustain some of those ESSER funded interventions and supports to the point where after the 2024-25, if all of the assumptions that are inherent in this 4-year outlook, which is, I would be the first to say, is largely speculative, our fund balance would be down to a total of about $24.25 million. That represents about 6.25% of our expenditures, which is well within the board's targets. The low end of the board target is 5%. So we would be trending a little bit towards the low end, but certainly within the brackets of board policy in terms of fund balance targets. So with that, happy to entertain any questions.
I actually have a question. I don't know what the slide numbers are, Brett, so I'm just going to show you this one.
Okay,
So the
revenue,
revenues as a
yeah, I think
percentage of
that's
the
the
total budget.
second slide.
And then also
here.
the next slide after that. I'm just curious, the revenues is 456 million and the expenditures is 545. So can you just explain the
total revenue. So you're asking about the relationship between the bottom line of this slide and that side. Yep. So the biggest variance between those two numbers is within our capital projects fund. So if I can indulge people in bouncing around, if we go back to this slide in that center column capital projects fund, we are planning to spend down accumulated resources in that capital projects fund significantly. And why we have accumulated resources there is we sell our bonds, not necessarily monthly to meet the cash flow needs. We've sold those bonds in 4 annual installments. So the last bond sale was last February. Those reserves are going to sustain our final expenditures over the next couple of years, quite frankly. You bet.
Additional questions for Brett at this time? Brett, I just want to thank you for all of your work, not just in the last month, but several months, keeping us informed as the budget's been developed. It's been, I appreciate your involvement of us in the process.
Thank you.
And I just want to second that. One of the reasons why I feel that there aren't as many questions from us as people might expect is because you've been so good at explaining this to us along the way. So I appreciate that.
And again, I guess for the record, I should state this has been a multi-year, or excuse me, not multi-year, well, it is for me, but multi-month process. I believe we began meeting in March, if I'm not mistaken, with the board's budget committee, and then briefing the rest of the board as the process evolves. So I know this isn't the most exciting work at times, but I appreciate you all supporting and enduring that often tedious work to get to this result.
Just one more final comment. Because of the ESSER funds, I know there's additional work and analysis and how to apply those funds. So the normal budget, in addition, the ESSER funds, we appreciate kind of all the very detailed analysis you've done for us. Now is the time for public comment for this budget review, and we do not have any public comment on the budget. So we will reconvene the meeting. And we will consider the budget. Do I have a motion?
I will move to approve the budget.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, we can go ahead and vote on the budget. Director Smith?
Approve.
Director Barrows?
Approve.
Director Decker?
Approve.
Director Savala?
Approve.
And I also approve. Next on our agenda, we have a superintendent report from Dr. Snell.
Thank you, Kyle. I will walk through some information tonight, looking at just some highlights around the district. First of all, the last week, we've welcomed back a lot of staff. And so very excited to have more of a presence on campus. You can see some pictures, images of Jumpstart. This is at Houck Elementary. We've had a lot of future kindergartners in the building and staff doing a great job of supporting them. So there's always a lot of energy that starts to build in August, and we're excited to see students again. I want to talk a little about student equity, as we heard comments again this evening about that. Our focus on the student experience, and then wrap up this evening with fall guidance. So just in terms of welcoming back staff and thinking about the year ahead, these are 6 areas, or 5 areas, excuse me, of focus that the board has communicated to me are priorities this year. The first one, obviously, is student learning. And as we've heard from many public comments tonight, the challenges that have faced students and families and educators over the last year and a half, and really trying to approach each student and their unique needs and supporting them, helping them grow. So that is obviously our number 1 priority. Secondly, we need to continue to respond to the pandemic. We heard varied opinions tonight about the response. I'll talk a little about some of the guidelines and requirements that have been communicated since our last board meeting. The board has talked about increasing two-way communication, and anytime there's an opportunity of leadership transition, which is the last bullet, I think it's a great chance to look at currently what's going well in the district and what processes are serving the district well, and looking to opportunities to improve those processes. And so that is definitely a focus. And then, as we've heard, equity is an important topic as we think about the students we serve. And the board has communicated that they want to go through a process of developing an equity policy this year, listening to stakeholder feedback, understanding the needs of our students, and really sharing with the community what you've heard and what your stance is regarding student equity. So that is another focus area. Just to, again, this is a slide that I put up last time, and I think that one of the things that I've taken away from the last year or so is some misunderstandings about our student equity work. You know, we heard one speaker talk about critical race theory as being a college level course. We do not teach critical race theory or have curriculum, a class like that in our schools. So I encourage people that are hearing that or have questions about that to reach out so that we can share with you our focus. And our focus is really about each student and meeting their unique needs and making sure that they're treated fairly, that they have opportunities to succeed, that our schools are safe and accepting of each person as they come. They can be their unique self. We want to give our students the tools so that they can survive, not survive, thrive in a world that is diverse, that requires a lot of them, requires a lot of flexibility and empathy. So those are skill sets that we want to develop through our student equity work. And I know it's something that you guys have communicated to me that you would like to see manifest in an equity policy. So I just, again, the state did put new requirements into place, which I think has created some energy around this topic, which is good. I think we need to have these discussions in our community. But again, you know, that did not prescribe critical race theory in our staff training or the 1619 project, which is another one that we've heard from in public comment. What it did do and what it's continued to done for the last 25 years is ask us to look at our student learning outcomes and assess if we have gaps. And unfortunately in our district, we had gaps that the Attorney General identified as needing to be worked on. And so we embrace the opportunity to do better on behalf of our students. And so that is our student equity work. And it'll be interesting to see as it unfolds over the course of this year. I know the board is really committed to the student experience, and each person has experienced this pandemic uniquely. And I don't want to minimize anybody's experiences. And so when we think about the COVID countermeasure strategies that we are required to put in place or that we choose to put in place, we want to think about the student experience. And I know that last year at this time, I didn't have the privilege of being in this boardroom, but I was in a different boardroom, and we were not talking about in-person learning. We were talking about remote learning and hybrid at best. And so all in all, I think we have made some progress. Is it where we would like to be? No, absolutely not. But we are moving forward, and we want to ensure that students have a 5-day experience and a remote learning option if that's what they need. Students have a lot to say about equity tonight. We heard some students speak here today, and I've heard a lot of students talk about making sure the curriculum reflects them, making sure that they can see their own story in what we teach. And everybody likes to be a part of the story. And so those are things that we want to continue to listen to students and have them drive this work. And then finally, I heard just a brief mention of health standards tonight. Again, last public comment, we had some really, I wish I could have followed up with some of the people, because misinformation about what we teach and when we teach it. So I would really encourage people to look at the Washington State Learning Standards, and specifically if sex education is something that you're wondering about, look at those standards and ask us questions. We're not trying to hide anything. We're trying to support our students and families and teach to the state standards that have been identified in the state. Oops. So just thinking about the fall countdown, August 31st, first day of school, right? That is awesome, right? And despite all of the challenges that we face, we will welcome over 20,000 students back to these schools, and we're gonna learn and grow with them and be inspired by them. And so that is a celebration. At the last board meeting, I was only able to update you on the CDC guidance, which was released on July 9th. We were waiting for Department of Health guidance, and that has been released. And I did get an email today saying that there could be updates later sometime today. So there is always an ongoing process to monitor. We have great staff there doing that and ensuring that we have the most up-to-date information and our practices reflect the best safety that Department of Health and Clark County Public Health are instructing us on. Communication is huge with this. There's a lot of information out there and it's hard to process. You heard many speakers tonight talking about having multiple kids and trying to manage all the different teachers and classrooms and all of this flood of information. And so for us, we're trying to be very clear this year with district level communication that schools can build off of and send the same messages about specific practices in the school. If you had students who have attended multiple schools in our district, you know that the schools don't all look alike. The cafeterias look different, the recess looks different, the covered play areas look different. And that's awesome, right? We have a variance in our district that reflects the unique nature of each school. And so those schools need to communicate specifically, what does lunch look like? What does dismissal look like? What does coming to school look like? And so we want to empower them to do that consistently. And so as a leadership team, we've met and reviewed those. And then schools will start disseminating information to support classroom teachers sharing information with their families. We know that the number one provider of information for families is the trusted classroom teacher. And so we want to give them the information that they have so that they can inform their classes, and then they can also inform the individual students and individual families with their specific needs. So that's a really important strategy, and we would like kind of a through line through district level, school level, classroom level, individual communication for our families. Opportunity and access, we heard people talk about vaccination and testing this evening. So those are things that we continue to try to partner with public health and provide opportunity and provide access. I'll talk a little more about the testing as we come up. You saw, I'm sure most people saw that Governor Inslee required state employees to be vaccinated. That doesn't apply for K-12 all staff. It does apply to our nursing staff. And so we'll be working to comply with that. And then we'll also be working to support our staff with information about vaccinations and opportunities if they choose to do that. Similarly with our students and families, and also our communities through the Family Community Resource Centers and the other services that we provide really rely on schools as a hub. And so we have mobile clinics out here every day, it seems like, and opportunities for students to connect with health services if they choose at our sites. And then the last thing is the family survey that is still going right now, and I'll give you a little update on that. What's happening in Clark County right now? This week's data has not been updated, but you can see historically that we've had a series of ridges and hills, and the data that I would call your attention to right now is down here is where we've been at the last several weeks. And so we are seeing an uptick of cases. And that trend, unfortunately, over the weekend was even higher than this is showing. So we're going to continue to monitor that. We meet weekly with public health to see what's going on. This is an overview of the DOH guidance. It speaks to a lot of the strategies that we had in place, and a lot of those strategies are similar to when they were last year. I want to highlight a couple of things that face coverings are going to be required this year as of this Department of Health update. Outside, they will not be required, so students will be able to have mask breaks. We will put recommended distancing spaces in so that we don't have groups of kids congregating right on top of each other for extended periods of time without masks. Physical distancing requirements have been updated. The priority this year with the guidance is to have 5 days of in-person learning. And so that is required of us by the state. And so instead of having the distancing dictate capacity, it's the 5 days dictating capacity, and then we being creative on how we can make the distancing work. So that's a shift. And then also suggesting and encouraging us to layer as many mitigation strategies as possible. And they outline all of these strategies. A big thing that's important is the quarantining. We heard some people talking about students being quarantined or staff being quarantined. And so they have updated those procedures to be more reflective of vaccination rates and opportunities like that, and also testing potentially. Regarding diagnostic testing, this is a service that we will be providing as an option for families. And so you can imagine that as a student, if they're at school and they have symptoms, and if you're a parent, and we've probably all gotten a call like that, that our kid is not feeling well, and you need to go to the school and pick them up. What we are trying to provide is, if those parents choose, that they can actually do a COVID test there at the school and get the results within 24 hours instead of having to schedule another appointment or go somewhere else. And if you're balancing multiple kids and a job and everything else, it's really just designed to try to be a service to our community around access. And of course, the better we get about identifying when there's a case, the better we are about not allowing that case to transmit. So that's a really important component. And there's some more research, or I'm sorry, some more detail on this slide about what we would be doing. I want to be really clear that this is a directive that came to me after the Department of Health guidance. And there are some places in the guidance where it is a recommendation. The masking is not a recommendation. It is the law by a governor's executive order. And if you, as a board, choose to not put that mitigation factor in play, then the budget that you just approved would lose all all state and all federal revenue. And so that piece of the pie would, which is about maybe 75%, would go away. So it is a very serious thing, regardless of your individual perspective on it. We do need revenue to run schools. I did this overview last time as well, just to kind of try to organize some of these areas that people have a lot of energy around. And where the authority lies based on the most up-to-date Department of Health guidance. And so the first one is, it is optional for a district to provide remote learning, but you as a board said we want to provide remote learning, so we have been doing that. And we will do that next year through Vancouver Virtual Learning Academy. Face coverings, as I just mentioned, at the state level, that is their decision at this point. COVID cases and close contacts, public health also defines the reporting requirements related to those, and then it's our job to work through those protocols and do the notifications. We will continue to use the dashboard, and so all of our cases are updated weekly, so anybody in the community can see where cases are happening, and that's historical data as well, so you can look back on that. The distancing requirements, again, as I mentioned, are recommended 3 feet, but it should not prevent full-time in person, whereas last year it was 3 feet. And so that's a shift in the authority. And then finally, the contact tracing I spoke about with close contacts and quarantines, that there's a little bit more flexibility, but that is defined by public health. And then for us, it's our training around it and our communication with stakeholders. I just wanted to talk a little about communication and just kind of let the board know where we are at with our website, and the public know as well. Our staff have done a good job of really trying to respond to the changing guidance and to give families as much information as we have to help them make decisions. And so this is a screenshot of the landing page. There's a short welcome back message and then translated. And then there's an opportunity for people to weigh in with questions and thoughts. It's through a tool that allows anybody to share a thought, and then people to review those thoughts and star those if they're resonating with them. And so it gives us a good glimpse of what's kind of really on top of people's mind. I want to make sure that people understand that this isn't like how I'm suggesting the board makes decisions on what's the highest rated thought. It's more about how do we communicate better and knowing what people are paying attention to. So anytime you use a tool, whether it's a survey like this or anything else, sometimes there's a fear that people will stack the deck in their own favor. And this tries to account for that. And the other thing that we try to do is just to make sure that we have a lot of multiple ways to hear feedback. Public comment is one way. So it's important to get lots of different feedback. Also, the tool, then whenever those prioritized thoughts are, there's a screenshot which is really hard to see. I apologize, but maybe it'll make you go to it and look at it. It lists all those top thoughts, and then there's a short comment about each of the top 25 to 30, just to address the thought and direct people into a way where they can get information they need. Sometimes, because it's a live thing, the top 30 will change. And so you might see a thought that's like 27 that doesn't have a response yet. That's because it wasn't 27 when we were responding. So we'll keep monitoring that and keep adding detail to this. And then if guidance changes, of course, we got to go in and make adjustments as well. So it's a bit of a moving target, but we really want to be transparent with what we are getting and how we're sharing that with families. Again, think district level, so that we can frame school level, so that we can frame classroom level, so we can frame individual level. Also, we pulled from that just frequently asked questions that we're seeing, and those are all translated in Spanish and Russian as well. And so that's the bottom arrow that goes down there. So it's an important hub for us to just really manage the information and support you as a community of really knowing what's going on and how to help make decisions on behalf of your family. One of the most important decisions is remote learning or in-person learning. And so this survey has been open for about a week, and we have a 51% response rate as of 8 a.m. this morning. About 6,800 people responded. We did send another reminder this morning, and then it closes at midnight tonight. So race home and do your survey if you haven't done it yet. These surveys are, we'll also, once the survey is done, as I guess I mentioned this at the bottom, is that we'll start to do outreach individually from the school. So if we haven't heard from you, we're going to try to start to connect with you to understand where you're at and what you need for your decision making this year. We have about 500 students who have indicated interest in VVLA. A natural question is, how does that compare to last year? Really hard to tell because we were doing hybrid last year. So once we get all the survey results in, we'll kind of analyze that and see who's making different choices about their learning, and also trying to really think about, of these 500 students, how can we give the best experience? And maybe part of it is in person, if we get people comfortable, because we know that those relationships are really important. If we can't contact somebody and they're enrolled in the district, then we're going to assume that they want in-person 5-day learning based on a 95.5% return rate of that being the preferred choice at this time. I think that is it for the superintendent's report, other than some next steps. So staff are really busy. If you were coming up and you got here early, you might have saw people pressure washing or getting classroom spaces ready, or doing trainings. We had new teachers in the facility all this week. So there's a lot of excitement and energy around that. We're going to look forward to connecting with families about school-specific information in the coming weeks. And then August 31st, 2021, 20,000 students coming back to school. So we're really excited about that. And I'm really excited to be on the job with students, not just summer and board meetings.
I concur. Thank you very much. So 3 weeks from today. That concludes our meeting. We are recessing to executive session for the purpose of evaluating the performance of a public employee. Thank you very much. No action to follow, and it should be about 30 minutes.